evening, everyone. I'm Yi, your moderator for this evening. Welcome to another webinar from the Kuala Lumpur and Selangor Chinese Assembly Hall, KLSCAH. This webinar is organized by our KLSCAH Women's Committee. First off, I would like to give a shout out and big thanks to Kini TV for live streaming our webinar tonight on their platform as well. So the topic for this webinar tonight is flood crisis, finding long-term solutions to plug stopgap measures. Since last December, the flood crisis in Malaysia has affected thousands. Places that are hit heavily by mass floods include Pahang, Negeri Sembilan, Sabah, Melaka, Selangor and Terengganu. In total, an estimate of 40,000 people may have been displaced from their own homes. So many of you might remember that our usual routes to work in the past months has been affected. However, many families, especially those in urban poor areas, have lost homes, cars, and their own precious belongings. For some families, they even lost loved ones. With a special parliamentary sitting coming up soon on Jan 20th, Prime Minister Dr. Seri Ismail Sabri has called for this one to discuss the flood crisis, especially on post-flood management, aid coordination, and long-term planning for flood mitigation. So for today's webinar, I have three very special guests with me. They probably won't need so much introduction, but I will give them each a very short introduction. So first off, we have Dr. Kali from the nonprofit organization Global Environment Center, GEC. He heads their river care program and has 20 years of experience in running river management and public outreach programs, especially one of the special notable ones would be the River of Life near the Merdeka Square. He is currently focused on community-based projects, especially flood resilience programs. Our next speaker, Dr. Renard Siew, is from think tank Center for Governance and Political Studies, and he's their climate change advisor. Dr. Renard has been active about climate change and environmental issues, and he was also featured on the Gen T Asia platform for his work. So last but not least, we have YB Charles Santiago. He is the Member of Parliament for Klang constituency. Before I get to Dr. Kali, introduce our first speaker, Dr. Kali, I would like to remind our kind audience that if you're interested in seeing more talks like this, don't forget to donate to us in the QR code shown on the screen. So every bit of your contribution will go a long way for us at KLSCAH. And now I would like to introduce Dr. Kali to present. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Yi Sun Hu, for the introduction. And then first of all, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank KLSAH for the invitation to this, for me, important platform, especially after our country face extreme difficulties due to the climate change and so on. So as a first presenter, I will run through just to alert everyone the concept of the flood resilient community, what we need to know and what we need to do. These are the outline of my presentation for the next 20 minutes, some introduction, and also flood in Malaysia and holistic flood management, as well how to be a flood resilient community based on the preparedness thing. That Global Environment Center is a locally registered NGO for the last 23 years on championing on build partnership for the environment, because we strongly believe that none of us can be champion on our own. We need each other. Okay, so that's why our motto is building partnership for the environment, with the mission of GEC is to support the protection of the environment and sustainable use of natural resources to meet all level, local, regional, as a global level, through strategic partnership with community and like-minded organizations. So that's why GEC working with that, with the 4 main programs: river care, forest, peatland, and outreach program. And among the river care program, with the motto of river care, we care, because that's very important for community engagement or community participation in river management. We need to have ownership. That's why we call river care, we care, because it's our environment, our river. So motto, river care, we care. And of course, among the key activity, we look into water resource management, where we zoom on disaster risk management. So GEC, I've been involved on the disaster management for the last 15 to 20 years. Issue on, especially on community resilience. In fact, early of last year, we even conducted flood resilient training of trainers for Apex economic. Involve almost 7 regional economics Apex members. And basically Malaysia, we have been blessed, but sometimes for the wrong reason. We have plenty of rain, but by being blessed with the rain, that also lead to some of the issues. Especially what we are facing now, the too much water also not good, too little water also not so good. No? So Malaysia, we face both too much water as well as sometimes too little water. We also face drought, and beside the flood. Of course, if you look into that, we've been blessed with a total 990 billion cubic meter storage, and this is a source for the life for 2,986 rivers that we have, which covers by the 189 main river system and so on. This is something. And I also like to introduce the flood-prone area in Malaysia. No? So if we look into the overall picture based on the data from DID, and I think that it shows that roughly estimated around 10% of the total country's area are flood-prone area. No? So what flood-prone area means? It means when rain, it should be flooded. That's how the nature works. We need to understand how nature works. And in terms of the numbers, it's estimated around more than 5 million people are currently live in flood-prone area. So this is alarming figures for us now. And everyone need to understand whether we are living within the flood-prone area or not. So if you are within the flood-prone area, then we must always alert and be always in a prepared stage. How can we live with the flood? This is another one due to the climate change. Of course, when you look into the type of flood, of course, we have various flood from the monsoon. I mean, if you're talking about 15, 20 years ago, people more aware of the monsoon flood. Especially East Coast, all these things. So most of us are aware of this monsoon flood. And then the other one is flash flood, especially in urban area. Beside that, there's also different type of flood, from regional, localized, river flood, and also rural, coastal flood, and so on. And what caused the flood? I think it's number one, definitely due to the weather condition, extreme weather condition, especially due to the climate change. I think Dr. Renard will emphasize more on that. So I'm just touching that is due to the climate change, impact at a regional, global, as well as a local level. Beside that, a reduction of water catchment area due to the development, agriculture, and also logging have caused reduction in the or loss of water catchment area, which function as a sponge and also as a storage on that, and also unsustainable urbanization. In fact, when we talk about development cities and town and so on, we are talking about no proper river basin management or drainage management system, because if you understand that when we talk about river basin, we have to see drain management is a part of the river management. So we cannot let go of the drain management if we want to have proper river basin management. So if you look into that integrated river basin management, drainage management is a part of the river management. So therefore, you and I have important role, because to manage river, sometimes people say that's a role of the government, but we do have our role by just managing our drain and so on. Beside that, the sediment from the land clearing and construction site, logging, all these things also cause a problem in the monsoon drain as well as the river. And obviously the other reason, especially in urban area, is the disposal of solid waste into the drain. And everyone have to understand that drain meant for rainwater only, dot, that's all. Okay, nothing else should end up in the drain. But unfortunately, in reality, everything except the rainwater ends up in the drain. That's why whenever the flood happens, whenever the high rainfall, and that's why the overflow and cause the flash flood and so on. Beside that, the encroachment and destruction or loss of the floodplain area, because floodplain area been developed. Okay, one classic example, maybe YB Charles can emphasize that later. The Taman Sri Muda is a well-known flood prone area or floodplain area, which been developed into residential area. Besides that, also encroachment and destruction of the flood retention pond. See, flood retention pond is how nature, okay, manage the water flow and so on. But when we develop and reduce the size or even close the thing, and that cause the overflow and the flood issue and so on. Obviously, the other one, due to the climate change, of course, people like us are more scared of the changes in a raining pattern. Okay, we see 10, 15 years ago, we can predict when is the monsoon season and so on. But now, no more. Okay, like now you see, now you don't. Okay, rain in the morning and then evening different and so on. So changes in the raining pattern also another root cause. Okay, for the flood and so on, beside the community. So when you look into the why GC, we are not against the development. What we are trying to emphasize is unsustainable development is what we should worry and should be avoid. And when we look into that, the comparison graphic diagram here, before urbanization and after urbanization, what will happen that, the water will gush through and then quickly ends up in the water body, and that caused the flood. And if we look into the two different scenario, okay, I think scenario A, when it's more on the natural condition where we have more plants and so on, a catchment area. So if you look into the percentage of evapotranspiration as well as the seeping water into the soil and so on, the percentage. In fact, when you reduce the greenery space, catchment area, or permeable surface, it actually increase the runoff. I think that when you tar the surface or cement the surface, all this thing, it increase the what you call percentage of runoff increase, and then reduce the retention time and so on. Obviously, I think this one be well versed on the impact of flood, besides social economic losses and also destruction on the property infrastructure. I think even recent flood that we faced a month ago caused extremely high cost damage to the country and also to the people. And also, beside that, it also caused outbreak of diseases, and also the post-recovery and redevelopment is very highly cost and so on. Obviously, casualty and the loss of life, and also injury, and also loss of the industrial and also livestock, agriculture, crops, and so on. And of course, a reduction in the sense of security and so on. And if you look into the estimated cost for 2014, actually, in terms of the more than 400,000 with an estimated loss of more than 2 billion. Okay, so it's not cheap affair on the flood. And these are some of the scenario of the flood for the country over the years, including the bad one for the Kuala Lumpur and so on. Okay, obviously this is the latest one. It estimated that it costs, still unofficial estimation, is the cost of the damage, the loss could be more around 20. Okay, and also displacement of more than 71,000 residents that affected over 125,000 people on overall. So these are the history and some info. But now we move to how to manage this flood now. Okay, we cannot avoid, sometimes due to the mismanagement and also unsustainable development, it causes flood there. So now we need to learn how to live with flood and so on. So I have listed 4 main things when we talk about holistic flood management. Number one, proper understanding. We need to learn to live with the nature, coexist with the nature and so on. Second, holistic flood management. And then each of us, we need to know our responsibility of the stakeholders, and then the role of the government, private sectors, NGO, as well the public. And finally, what action we can do. I will emphasize on the action by the community, the biggest stakeholders. And then when we talk about approach that lead to the action, is proven that we need to learn how to balance the hard approach, okay, and soft approach and the hard approach. We need to balance. We cannot emphasize only one, the structural solution, but also need to emphasize the soft and hard approach, human factor into that. So therefore, GC have developed what we call civic science, where we put the civic back into the civil engineering, so that we enable local action and to reconnect with the nature, so that we can instill sense of ownership. And when we talk about civic science, how to stimulate the local action, there's actually 4 stages before we can expect action from the stakeholders, public, and also local community. First, we have to create the awareness, and then provide them the knowledge and empower them with the skill, because it's proven at a global level with the awareness, knowledge, and the skill, it lead to the action. So we need to provide all the 3 levels. And number 1, we need to have proper understanding that when we talk about water, we need to understand the water connection. Everything is interconnected. And we need to understand the water cycle that, all of us, if you see, this is the water cycle. And we need to know we are part of the water cycle. In reality, all of us are part of the water cycle. If we fail to play our role properly, accordingly, then we are part of the problem, and also will be affected significantly. And also we need to understand that all is interconnected, not only through water connection, but also through the river basin concept, that all rivers are not same or not equal. Each river need different approach, and need to understand who are the stakeholders. And then, as I mentioned earlier, drainage system as a part of the river basin management. So if you look into the river basin here, we need to know connectivity. The river and the valley should be integrated. We need to see, when we manage, we need to manage not only the river, but also the river basin, the area between left and right hand side of the river. And then we also need to work with the nature, not against it. Most of the problem is a man-made problem, because we always tend to go against the nature. Because why we need to work with the nature? Because to ensure a good balance between the important for the man, human being, as well animal and plants, because we need all. We need to learn to coexist with that, and also to balance the important of the environment, economy, social, and religious, by adopting the nature-based solution. So if you look at the diagram I listed here, these are the concept thing. And finally,
it seems like Dr. Kali has disconnected for a while. We will be back on shortly once Dr. Kali is back online. Thank you for your patience. So maybe just while we are waiting for Dr. Kali, I would like to share a bit of trivia in relation to climate change. If you guys, maybe for those who are familiar with environmental issues, perhaps you guys know about the website Climate Control. So if you're interested in seeing which areas that might be under sea level in by 2030, 2050, you can visit this website Climate Control, and you can see which areas around the world that might be under sea level due to climate change. So yeah, check out the website Climate Control. So to keep things going, we can perhaps bring the next speaker up. Dr. Renard, you can present next. Thank you.
Yeah, can everyone see my slides?
It's perfect.
Great. Okay. Yeah, so just building up on what Dr. Kali had presented, basically my area of research of expertise is really on climate change in itself and its impacts. And clearly, in December, we have seen how devastating this could be. And, scientists have long warned us that, we only have a dozen of years left to cap temperatures from increasing by 1.5 degrees Celsius. And if we do exceed that, we will be witnessing more extreme weather events, not just floods in our area, but also severe droughts and wildfires in other parts of the world. And I think that is clearly, like the reality of the situation that the climate crisis is here. And the data doesn't lie. If we look at the 19 of the 20 hottest years on record, they have literally occurred since the year 2001. Right. And in fact, the hottest of all have been in the last 5 years. And just very recently, it was noted this year in 2022 in Australia, I think, the world temperature highest record was at 50 degrees Celsius, which was quite shocking, right? So, what happens is that when our weather gets warmer, what tends to happen is that the atmosphere tends to hold more water vapor. For every 1 degree Celsius of increased rate, there's about 4% more water vapor in our current atmosphere. So we will actually be seeing globally, right, floods, extreme rainfall events, right, now basically occurs about 4 times, right, more often than back in the 1980s. And gradually it's increasing. So these are things that we can see with our naked eye, like in different parts of the world. In Savannah, Tennessee, just a couple of years ago, there was also torrential rains, right, that has flooded the whole of Tennessee and Mississippi. In Bihar, India as well, the amount of rainfall, has been noted to be a lot higher, by about 50% more. So, the rate signs or telltale signs were already there to begin with. Of course, in Xinjiang, Guangdong, we have seen this. And also in 2021 alone, in parts of Germany, in China, and New York, there was literally back-to-back events. And, what scientists have called, a once in 100 years flood seems to be happening more frequently than normal. And of course, needless to say, like in bringing it closer to home, we have obviously seen, right, one of the worst floods that has happened in Malaysia. It started off, a lot of people are very familiar with the monsoon season, right? That typically happens between November to March, primarily affecting people on the east coast of Peninsula Malaysia. But last year, like literally, it was like people, even residents within the Klang Valley, was hard hit by this. And people started waking up because they were like, oh, what's happening, right? I thought rainfall, monsoon season only typically affect people who are primarily living in the coastal area. And boom, right? We were really caught by surprise. Unfortunately, this has led to, the evacuation, I believe, of more than 70,000 people with, I think, more than 50 odd deaths that were recorded. And it was severe. Like people's livelihoods were affected, accessibility, to things like food security, medicine was cut off in certain hotspot areas, right? Which rings a huge alarm. Like, could we have actually done better? A lot of people don't remember this, but the Center for Governance and Political Studies, or CENGPS, back in 2019, using a couple of modeling scenarios, like we have actually been able to sort of reproduce some of these studies from Climate Central that was actually picked up by the media, highlighting key areas or hot spots that will be inundated by water. But of course, the projection back then was that, like this would typically happen, in 2050. But, we have seen that, in 2021, that extreme weather events could happen, right, almost immediately, and a lot sooner, right, than what was projected. So it's becoming a lot harder, I think, for climatologists these days, right, to come up with more accurate and reliable predictions, because a lot of data that we rely on, right, have primarily been what has occurred, right, literally in the past, 3 or 4 decades. But we are seeing more erratic weather patterns happening more frequently. So the probability, the likelihood of this happening is increasing. And to a certain extent, I think we probably don't really have much or close accurate data on this. But what we can see is that ice sheets are melting. For example, in Greenland, it's projected the ice, right, is currently melting about 4 times, right, faster than originally thought. And more is actually melting from what we call permanent ice sheet, right, than glaciers. I'm sure a lot of you have heard about this. And these are some of the data that we've collated, charting out, the Antarctic ice loss. You can see that it's increasing almost at an exponential rate, if you like, partly because of things like global warming. The pumping of carbon emissions into the atmosphere is warming our planet. And so we are losing a lot of ice. So a lot of cities are at risk, right, from increasing sea levels. And this is, once again, a projection by the OECD environment team. So it's been projected that, by 2070, these are the populations that will be at risk in millions, right? So apart from big cities in India, Kolkata, Mumbai, you can also already see that in Asia, in Southeast Asia alone, like in Ho Chi Minh City, in places like Bangkok, they will all also, right, be under all of this risk. And this is another set of data measuring, the cities that are at risk in terms of assets. So for those who are actually interested in actually investing, right, in things like property, in the past, people always talk about property investment in terms of location. But what they really mean by that was really in terms of accessibility, right, to your workplace, in terms of convenience. But in this day and age, investors are asking about, if I were to invest in property, right, will the property that I'm actually investing in be submerged underwater in the next 10 to 20 or 30 years? So you can see that this conversation or dialogue on the impacts of the climate crisis on flood situations is coming up to the fore, and people are starting to realize how significant this is. So not just to day-to-day citizens, but also to people who are conducting businesses, right? So they're starting to evaluate what are some of the risks that could come as a result of this. And I know Dr. Kali had probably covered this earlier, like what do we need to do, right, in order to ensure that, we sort of minimize or mitigate the impacts of floods moving forward. For me, the way I say it is that I would sort of summarize it in 3, right? I think there's been a lot of dialogue, like in the past on climate mitigation, right? How do we cut down on carbon emissions? How do we reduce our emissions? But I think it's high time that we also, spend a little bit more time focusing on adaptation. So Malaysia in itself, I think we are striving to apply for, a green climate fund for us to come up with a robust and comprehensive national adaptation plan, which is, in my opinion, very much needed because, assuming that temperatures are already rising, that we're already exceeding that 1.5 degrees Celsius limit. And as I've shown you how, Antarctic, ice sheets are already melting, are we actually prepared for this, extreme weather events? What do we need to do further to ensure that people are safe, that livelihoods will continue to go on without being too affected by this? So I think adaptation is one of those key areas that, we really, really have to focus on. But in doing so, I think my second point I want to bring up is the importance of engagement as well. For some of us who have been in the field of sustainability, we always say how important it is, right, to not leave anyone behind. So in the process of developing an adaptation plan, I think it's very important to ensure that the marginalized communities, right, the indigenous communities, disabled, the elderly, all of them actually have a seat, right, on the table to also be able to voice out their concerns and opinions, and also to prepare them for what is to come. I think a lot of this shouldn't just be high-level talks, right, at a policy level, but also there's a need to sort of bring it down to the ground, socialize it with the people, and to test it out with them. Make sure that they're engaged in the process, that they know what is coming. And of course, thirdly, I think like everyone knows about this, support or resources is very important, not just financially, but also in terms of capability, right? Capacity building. I think, we really have to start engaging with a whole group of different stakeholders, right? Not just to raise awareness, but also, get them to take action. So this flood episode that we have been facing, apart from, man-made disasters, right? Like the climate crisis, for example, there's also things that we need to reflect on. For example, the way that we manage our own drainage systems. Dr. Kali pointed out, very accurately just now that, we shouldn't be clogging them, right, with waste, because technically, it sort of blocks the natural flow of water, which leads to sea level rises in certain urban areas. There also needs to be a lot of proper planning, right? Urban planning, master planning that is involved. And once again, this would involve quite a lot of engagement initiatives with the right people. Making sure that their voices are heard, that we know what is to come. And I guess with that, right, I'll sort of leave the conversation there. I think there's still time for us to discuss in more depth on some of these issues during the moderation of our panel later. So I'll pass the time back to Yi. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Dr. Renard. So next, I would invite YB Charles to speak next. YB Charles, you can go ahead.
Thanks, Yi, and also fellow speakers. I bring you greetings of peace and solidarity from my office in Klang. I will focus on three sets of issues. One involving what I call advanced warning. Number two, on flood relief, and the way forward. So basically, three of these issues. And some of these issues that I'm going to raise or will discuss will be parallel or has already been taken up by other speakers. The issue of advanced warning. I think there was an article written sometime in the third week of December saying that the Ministry of Environment knew about this Typhoon Rai coming to Malaysia. They already knew in the first week of the end of first week of December that parts of Malaysia, including Selangor, will receive the tail end of Typhoon Rai. And the question to be asked is, why wasn't there a sufficient advance warning, or why wasn't there a massive alert that had come out from the ministry to advise people, especially those in the coastal areas, to be ready and to be careful? And also, as part of the advance warning, the government could have also presented a whole list of things or a whole support system that it is going to make available in case there was going to be massive flooding. When it finally happened, so the first thing is, why wasn't there advance warning? And I think here, heads have to roll. Heads have to roll in the ministry who knew about the possibility of a huge rain coming into coastal areas in Selangor. And why wasn't it taken seriously? Why was it not taken seriously? And how come, based on the knowledge that they have that the wind was coming, they did not unfold or roll out a plan of action that could have been made available, and that could have helped to mitigate some of the disaster that we have actually experienced on December 17th and 18th. And therefore, I think the hits have to roll, and it has to roll in the Ministry of Environment. That's number one. Number two is the issue of what happened on December 17th and 18th. The government was flat-footed. The government had no response. The government was almost non-existent on 17, 18, and the week and a few days after that. Completely absent. The government was absent, and there was no leadership provided in order to overcome some of the problems that people were facing at home. And suddenly people were saying that their houses were being flooded anywhere between 3 inches, 6 inches, right up to 7, 8, or even 10 inches. And in case of Sri Muda, you had the entire house covered, or 3/4 of the house covered. So you had a devastation in front of you, a total devastation in front of you. But unfortunately, there was no response, no effective state response towards the issue. And therefore, this actually tells you that the level of preparedness on the part of government in managing a crisis is hopeless. And that is why you also see at that particular moment, people started coming out. People were out there bringing their boats, renting boats. NGOs were, moving to different parts of the country, different places where people were, were suffering from the floods, and where houses were flooded, bringing food, trying to first rescue food, and so on and so forth. So basically, what we saw in the third week of December was a catastrophe that unfolded in front of all Malaysians without state response. This is actually very shameful. Malaysia, we are 60 years old. We are an older nation, but somehow, in the case of a crisis such as this, we were completely flat-footed. The entire system collapsed. If you ask people what happened to the Jabatan Kebajikan Malaysia, nobody could say where they were. I mean, it is the role of the Jabatan Kebajikan Malaysia or the Welfare Department to be out there, not only for rescue, but also to provide welfare and support, together with the police, the army, and so on and so forth, and the bomber and so on. So, but unfortunately, on that particular day, everybody was caught up. I mean, bomber was being used, no doubts about that, but there was no coordinated activity to bring support to families, to households, to taman-tamans, the housing areas which were badly hit. So I would have thought that if there was better planning, if there was an advance warning, in the case of Selangor at least, we could have actually, the federal government and together with the Selangor government could have brought reinforcement from Negeri Sembilan, from Melaka, or even from Perak and Penang. We should have done that before. We should have had that in the planning stages before 17th and 18th of December, before the floods, as opposed to unfolding the plan after the floods or the damage was done. So this is why I'm saying that heads have to roll. If heads don't roll, then we will never learn a lesson. And it has to roll at the highest level at the ministry, because they knew about it. They had advanced information about it, but they did not act on it. And this is something that is serious, I think. And I think the government really has to remove some people to show leadership that this is completely something that the government will take seriously. Anyway, so that is the first part that I would like to raise, that there was a complete vacuum in the role of government. There was a vacuum in terms of advance warning. The government was flat-footed. People were shocked beyond belief what was happening. In the case of, I spoke to some people in Telugu, where the Machi told me by the time she opened and closed her eyes, there was 5 or 6 feet of water in the house. And all she could think was, take the 3 children that she had and run to a higher place. And she was also, she didn't take any, there was no clothes to be taken, nothing whatsoever. Just the clothes they were wearing, and they ran with that to the higher grounds. So people were desperate. People were put in a vulnerable position by lack of government foresight, lack of government action. I think this is quite serious, especially those in the coastal areas like Telogong, Pulau Indah in Klang, where they're directly exposed to this very close proximity to the sea. They were badly affected. And I think this is where early warning, early advance warning, and a protocol that has to be followed at a time of a crisis could have gone a long way in protecting property, lives, and damage that we had. My estimate is a family would have lost anywhere between 20 and 40,000 ringgit. Now we are looking, this is quite serious, and that's because a lot of people are still recovering from COVID. A lot of people lost their jobs during COVID. A lot of wages were cut during COVID, and now they're slowly getting back. They're not at the optimum, slowly getting back, and now they will hit again. So this has got a financial cost, especially to B40 or we call them B60 families. So I think something that we have to take seriously. Now, when it comes to food relief, we can break down in a couple of areas. One is basic. One is rescue people. Rescue people, bring them to higher ground. Now, that is when the government has to move. The government has the apparatus. They have the boats. They have the armed forces. They have the police. They have the bomber. These are people who are specially trained to go into war, to go into difficult conditions. But why were they not mobilized in the initial stages? Why were they not mobilized in the initial stages? And why was there a fight in the case of Selangor? Who was the chairman of the National Security Council, which the Jabatan Kuasa Bencana, to help to coordinate the different activities? There was a conflict. that was happening in Selangor. So clearly it shows the government was flat-footed, poorly coordinated, and could not be effective in the early stages, or at least early to the mid stages of the crisis of the problem that we have, the flood crisis. Number two, we look at how to get food. So it was the people, it was NGOs, it was individual MPs who were rushing from one end to the other and providing food and support. In the case of my office, our volunteers were caught. The car that took them to Klang Utama, or the vehicle, the truck that took them to Klang Utama to supply food, provided the food to the school where it was a relief center, but on the way back it collapsed because the water was just too high, and it wasn't possible for the vehicle to move any forward. And they were stuck in the water till 3 o'clock in the morning. This is a question of life and death. We are not trained to do these things. Ordinary people are not trained to do these things. But unfortunately, we are caught. And we have forced to do it because we want to save lives. And it's part of our mandate to rescue people in the context of this flood. So again, level of preparedness was not there. And individuals, people, NGOs, individuals, associations, religious groups themselves were mobilizing people to rescue people, provide the food. Now, once that food part is done, after the 3-4 days, at least in the context of Klang, 17, 18 was quite bad, really bad. And then 19, 20, the water subsided. It was now the process of taking stock of what had transpired and putting in the basic infrastructure in the house, because people had lost their furniture, people had lost their beds, people have lost their cupboards, people have lost their books, their clothes. I've met many families which lost all their clothes, including slippers. I met when we were distributing barang in Telegong. I met this it's about 35-year-old man with 2 children, and I asked, "Hey, what happened to your slippers? Where are your slippers?" And he said, "Look, I lost everything in the house was gone. Semua hilang. Everything is gone." So even slippers were washed out by the floods, and it left behind whole 1 or 2 inch or even 3 inches of mud behind, which had to be cleared. So what we are looking at is devastation. High levels of devastation that we don't talk about, and we think that people themselves, people are resilient, yes, but at this time people need support and help to get back to a normal life, and also to carry on with jobs and so on and so forth. And now we have to talk about rebuilding. So I think this is rebuilding is going to take some time. The basic rebuilding would be to provide basic infrastructure for cooking, for schools, uniforms, for children are going back to schools, books for children which they have lost during the floods. These are the basic stuff that needs to come back: cooking stuff, kettle to boil water, basic stuff, and food. Now, what I realized is people did not have 1 or 2 days food, and some of the food that they had kept thinking they can use it for the next day was spoiled. And I think this is where a coordinated effort by the government it actually will be very helpful at different levels. Here, the government was missing, and people who were coordinating it at the local level had no idea what they were doing. So people had to take matters in their own hand in order to push the idea, to push a certain way of trying to get food. My office was all over the place, trying to get food, trying to get clothes to people, trying to get subsequently detergent, mops, brooms, and this and that to get people to start cleaning up. So it's quite demanding in that sense, though. Now, going forward, I think the issue of rethinking, and I think both Dr. Kali and Dr. Renard have put forward some of the ways of rethinking. And I think this rethinking cannot be done in the same way that we saw the crisis unfold in Malaysia, the floods unfolding in Malaysia. The issue of climate change is not new. Government is very well aware of that. The Jabatan Pengairan and Saliran is very well aware of climate change and what is happening in Malaysia. It's no secret. Everybody knows about it. The question is, where is the political will to address the question of climate change? In this particular case of flooding and rainfall. Now, we take Klang alone. Klang had in late October, I think, a massive flood. When I say massive flood, I shouldn't say massive flood, it was a massive rain. And I think it brought down something like 137 mm of rain in a short period of time. and that flooded the low-lying areas. Now, clearly you can see 127 mm is not normal. Is not normal in terms of taburan hujan, that means the volume of rain. It is not normal. And prior to that, maybe a month before that, I think Klang also saw something like 97 or 100 mm of rainfall. So you had in a very short period of time, that means from October, November, and December, you had 97 to 100, and then you have 137 mm of rain coming down in one day in a short period of time, and also finally on December 17th and 18th, I was informed by JPS that the three rainfall reading stations in Klang recorded on 17th at 7:30, 17th December at 7:30, 700 mm of rain, and then the following day it was 1,077 mm of rain. That is the following morning, 11:30 in the morning. So you can see the volume of rain is huge. And unfortunately, that together with a huge amount of rain, that together with a substandard and a faulty drainage system, the water just overflowed and moved into the houses, into shops. And today there's an estimate that we would have lost something like, not only Klang, but the entire country would have lost 6.5 billion ringgit worth of property. And I think that is an underestimation. It could be much higher. So therefore, I think we have lost 6.5 million in 2-3 days. And if you just imagine, if only we had invested 6.5 million or even just 6 million on DID, on drainage and irrigation, Klang and other areas of Selangor in the last so many years, we could have managed it better. I'm not saying it's going to be great, but we could have managed the floods better. Okay, so therefore, this is a wake-up call. This is a warning to government that you have to take climate change, especially flooding, very seriously. And I think the projection for Klang is quite dire. I think the climate control website actually shows that if nothing's done in Klang in the next 10 years, Klang will go underwater. So this is quite serious wake-up call. And the country will lose space, the country will lose land, and more importantly, Klang is one of the biggest contributors to Malaysia's GDP. We have the three biggest ports in Klang, and therefore the Malaysian government has to take this very seriously. And I'm now talking to the various authorities in order to start rethinking drainage and irrigation for Klang. I will propose some ideas a bit later, and not in talking to people to get some ideas. But I think this is the way to go, that we really have to start rethinking about drainage and irrigation very specifically, and also the issue of adaptation and so on and so forth. Now, I also think that it is time that the government takes and the private sector, including households, take the idea of environment seriously. Environment must become a centerpiece of planning. Environment is always seen as a photo opportunity for businesses, and for government doesn't know what to do with the environment. So they have the environment ministry, which is quite happily sleeping, and unable to come out with a clear plan. What are they going to do? No clear plan is coming out in relation to flood and so on. Every year we see the flood. We know deforestation is a major problem, but what have we done to deforestation? Nothing. More timber is being cut down. Why can't the government say, okay, all the timber will stop, all chopping of timber, all timber contracts will be stopped, terminated? Why can't we say that, given that what we already saw? I mean, early last year in KLSCAH, we saw huge timber, ending up in people's houses. Timber that was cut was all in front of people's houses. And I was told even in Pahang, the same thing happened. And some of the timber ended up in people's roofs during the floods. So this is something that we have to do, but take it seriously. Why can't the government say they are going to stop the cutting of jungles? Why can't we just say that? Or we limit the number of acreage that we're going to cut? Something like that has to be done seriously. Otherwise, we are going to see the specter of December 17 and 18 repeat itself every year. So this is a warning to all of us Whether you are business, whether you are a government, whether you are a household, we have to take this very, very seriously. And the government has to ensure that the private sector, whether you are small, whether you are medium, whether you are big multinational corporations, environmental issues must be centerpiece of your planning. Climate change issues, not greenwashing, by the way. I'm talking about greenwashing with photographs and pictures and all that. Very concrete element with government guidance and international guidance on how to cut down on carbon emission. This has to be done. There's no way around it. There's no way around it. And this tells you that the government now has to allocate more money for drainage and irrigation, especially in cities and also in places in the coastal areas. As I said, Klang has got the 3 biggest ports in the Klang is the host of 3 biggest ports and 12 other small ports, which are very central to the country. And in 10 years' time, if there is a plan, if there is the prediction is you'll go under, your country is in trouble. Your country is deep in trouble. So therefore, the government has no choice but to come out and rebuild and redo and rethink drainage and irrigation in Klang and other coastal areas of Selangor. So I think this is something that we really have no choice. Climate change has to become the centerpiece. This is how one has to organize the economy. Climate change, not greenwashing, by the way, climate change, issues of adaptation, cutting down gas emissions in a very concrete way, time-bound, and the guidelines with the specific indexes and so on, must become the centerpiece of planning in private sector, in government sector, as well as in households. And also, I think I want to underscore the point of Dr. Kali, where he made a very good point that drains are meant for the flow of water. Today in Malaysia, all our drains, almost all the drains are filled with water bottles, full of sand, full of rubbish, and also people who actually do renovation, dump their cupboards and dump whatever stuff that they have, concrete doors into the drain. This is part of the contributing factor why there's no water flow. So households, you just cannot point your finger at the government agencies. You have to take responsibility as well. Businessmen, you have to take responsibility as well. And you government have to take responsibility as well. So I think it is time to rethink our responsibility as citizens of the country, as partners of the country, to rebuild the nation, and in this particular case, to rebuild drainage and irrigation for the betterment of everybody. Otherwise, I can tell you, 16th and 17th of December will go down as something that we have not learned from. I visited homes, and I saw people cry. Even today, and when it begins outside, when it starts to rain or the clouds gets darker, women especially start to cry. They said that they have fear that the house is going to flood again. People are rushing back to their house. Today it rained. People are rushing back to their house thinking that the water will go up. So there's going to be a national fear and a national paranoia. And this will, of course, end up, becoming health problems as well as productivity issues for businesses and so on. So I think we have to take it seriously, though. For that, thank you very much. Thanks for your attention.
Thank you, YB, for your on-ground insights. I would like to pass the floor back to Dr. Kali. He's back online now, and he will now continue with his presentation. Thank you, Dr. Kali. Oh, you might need to unmute.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Yu. I'm so sorry, just now I lost due to the problem of the thing. Let me share the presentation. I hope I'm in the right slide. As I say, as a part of the holistic flood management, where we have to play our role, I think that number one, everyone should have a proper understanding. I like to list few things. Number one, we need to understand the water connection, that everything's interconnected. When we talk about realistic water cycle, we are part of that. Whatever we do, whatever we fail to do will have impact on the water cycle, which end of the day still have impacted us through the disaster, either through flood, too much water, or too little water, which cause drought and so on. And then the other one, we also have to understand that when we say water connection, we are talking about the river basin, where how close we are to the river. A lot of people think that I'm staying away from the river, so therefore I won't be affected, or I'm not part of the problem or the solution. Actually, it's not. All of us are within the river basin, because for your simple understanding, drain is a part of the river system. So you want to manage river, you have to manage the artery of the river basin, which is the drain and monsoon drain. As we know, drain meant for rainwater only. So it should be always clear and get ready to cater for the rainfall and so on. Okay, and also we need to learn to work with the nature and not against it. Okay, so that we need to understand common goods and balance between the need for human being as well as the animal and plants, and also for the water, and also how to balance the need for the environment, important of the environment, as much as economic, social, as well as the religious, and also how to produce water resilient community. So one of the key thing, like what you can see in the graphic, I put some of the graphic for you to understand. But what are the key thing I like to emphasize here, that everyone need to understand that water also needs space. Okay, these are the people fail to understand that it's not only human need space for animal, flora and fauna, but also water as a living entity, okay, need the space as well. Okay, what will happen that the scenario, to put it in a layman term, when the home for water flow is being encroached or destroyed, maybe due to the development of the catchment area or water retention pond, like what's happening in KL, 5 pond being encroached or redeveloped, or the flood prone area being developed into industrial, agriculture, or even a housing area for the road, housing, agriculture, industry. So when there is no space for water, and water, you have to understand the characteristic, it will find its own way. So then, as I mentioned, water, we have no choice than to encroach into our home or facilities, because we remove the space for water, the natural space, the natural home for the water there. So therefore, water will find our own way, and that's why they encroach into our own facility. I'm not here to side the water, but we need to be fair, we need to treat water as a proper way, work with the nature, not against, because water is a living entity. We need to respect and need to learn to coexist and so on. And that's what is happening. When we encroach, remove their home or place for the water, and that's why they come to us, and that's what caused all the flood in the residential, on our road, because even road now cutting through the forest, catchment area and so on. So these are the key important message for me today, to the audience today, that water needs space. Please do understand, and we need to respect that. And when we talk about flood management, we need to balance both the hard approach, which is a structural flood control, which is always championed by the government. It need to be balanced with the non-structural flood control, which we are talking about how to balance the top down from the government to the public, and also from the public, people in the government, and also politicians need to listen the needs and what's happening at the grassroots. So we need to, everyone need to know how to balance the top down and bottom up. That's why we say, in order to produce the flood resilient community, this top down and bottom up approach need to be properly understood and also implemented and adopted by all the stakeholders, from the government to the public and private sectors. And when we talk about a mechanism, I think previously some people are talking about whether in terms of framework policy, are we in the safe hand, all this thing. Obviously, as all people, Malaysian aware, we have all the policy guideline, everything, but the issue will be the implementation. So when we talk about the flood management, we are talking about the Directive 20, on which is the key guideline on the disaster management for the country, within the specific chapters on the preparedness and also the how to respond and so on. So if you look on the which agency, NATMA, as per national level, who are responsible for disaster management in the country, and of course there's a different level of their role, and also, so if you look into that, So these are the management mechanism that they have divided into 3 levels based on severity of the disaster, which how many states involved and so on, and who are responsible to be in charge when disaster happen and so on. So that it's not we don't have, all is there, and also these are the proper flood relief mechanism system from under the National Security Council. Is all spelled out, detail, all these things. And in fact, we go into the on-site mechanism. So they already have divided into zone, the red zone, yellow, green zone, who are taking lead. So one of the first agencies should be on ground, on the site is the bomber and also the army. But unfortunately, when recent flood happened, Tamasri, Muda, all these things, there is no immediate action by the respective agency. I'm not here to blame. I'm just sharing. So we need to really look what happened, why this not been adopted and implemented immediately after the things happen. Because we've been told, when I was in a few sites, including in Selangor as well in Pahang, they say they only receive support or response from the agencies even after 48 hours and so on. I think what Charles have mentioned that and so on. So, but unfortunately, in terms on paper mechanisms, well, everyone knows. So we wondering where went wrong, because mechanism clearly mentioned that the DO role, everyone knows he is the person who mobilized the thing. Beside the mechanism, okay, we also have a forecasting and warning system in place, especially the DID, they have perhaps where they can actually forecast monsoon flood within 7 days in advance and so on. They also have the dissemination system, warning system, and also SMS thing. But for me, what's the main issue here is the communication and information dissemination. Is it fast enough, effective enough or not? When you have the information, is it be integrated? When the water level, what does it reflect to? It's not only the flood of the area, but also impact on the road. Which road will be flooded? Which are the landslide happen? All this thing, whether the data is integrated and the information received by the public, is it processed information and the warning given, is it too late for people to respond? So therefore, what as a NGO we like to put forward is community need to be prepared, need to empower how to respond, how to act when you receive this info. Okay, so obviously under NATMA also we talking about preparedness, how to empower people to respond and react to the disaster, in this case flood and so on. Of course, there is a list on the education and so on. So therefore, in support of the government, especially NATMA, GEC and also MyWP have developed what they call community-based program focusing on empowering public on the flood disaster. We have developed what they call Flood Ranger, which try to balance the bottom-up and top-down approach and so on. With the approach called Prepare, where we are talking about how to give them not only awareness and knowledge, but also the skill, which is very important to lead to the action. So it's not only creating awareness is enough, because it will never lead to the action. We need to provide them the skill. The question is, do everyone aware what action, what skill they needed to be a flood resilient community? Do politicians understand? Do the government agency really understand, emphasize this about the what action or what skill that community in their area should have? Okay, and when we talk about the prepare approach, there's a 3 level. One before, which is a preparedness. Okay, during the flood action and the recovery plan. Obviously, you can scan our QR code there to download the module that we produce. In fact, we use this module even to train Apex economic region recently, So it's well versed. And these are the mechanisms within the preparedness. First, identify the site and then develop the town watching map that everyone should aware what's happening in their area so that they know during the flood, where is evacuation center, which road or which safe route they have to take, especially when there's a bridge, where is the high flow and so on. So these are the function of town watching thing, Okay, so means everyone need to know what they need to do before, during and after. No point we only talking about during and after, but we need to play our role before flood happen, all this thing. No, we need to prepare ourselves, because we cannot rely on the historical knowledge and experience that my area never been flooded. That's why people say when East Coast badly flooded a few years ago. And now people say, when I visited a lot of community in Selangor as well in Pahang, people say my area never flooded. This is the first time. So our message to everyone, especially due to climate change, everyone need to be alert, because you cannot say my area will never be flooded, because for the last 20 years, I never experienced it. You get ready, because this is what the impact of the climate change, and also not ill preparedness by all the stakeholders. So these are the area when we talk about before the flood, information reading. So we need to know where to access the information and how to read the information, how to translate that into the impact, and then know the surrounding area, and also emergency and survival kit we need to have, which I will share with the photos shortly, and also evacuation safe route, and also emergency action. So these are the info everyone need to have. Save the portal about info banjir, to know the water level in the river and so on, and then also to know the area. So every community in Malaysia is a time. I hope the agencies will help the community to develop their town watching planning, the safe route for each community. When the flood happens, which is a safe route, which is evacuation turn nearest one, and so on. All these things need to be developed in partnership with the local communities, so that community aware. No point we develop map and is sitting in the DO's office or in the agencies. It should be in every household. The map should be shared with all the communities, so that everyone knows. And also other tools, especially to get a clean potable water and food and so on. So if you look into that, these are the immediate kits that all community in Malaysia should have, which be something common in Japan, Philippines, where disasters are very frequent happening. So it's time for us to prepare ourselves. First is the grab bag. Okay, that when flood happen, you just grab the bag and run away. So that is important for the survival. So what should be in the grab bag? On the document kits, emergency kit, and medicine supply, personal hygiene kit, personal kit, and others. For the checklist, you can visit our website. You can download for free all this info, and also the video how to prepare the emergency kit. And the second one is 72H kit. This is a free 3 days immediately after disaster, because at a global level, it is understood that first 3 days after disaster is a critical, because most of the time support is difficult to reach the intended victim. So everyone need to prepare how to survive without any support from the other party, which happened to most community during the flood, especially for 2 days. So I think it's the time for everyone in Malaysia start to prepare these 72H bags. And what should be there is in terms of food and other material, as you can check in our website and so on. And also prepare the town watching plan, the map, and also first aid kit and so on. So these are the example of the town watching plan, or the safe route to take during the flood, for which is localized and customized for each individual community. We cannot rely on the general idea. It should be localized, so that people in Kampung A knows how to go, which road, which bridge, or which bridge should avoid or should taken during the disasters time, the flood time, and so on. So it's time, I think government have to invest on people, invest to develop the localized plan for the public in Malaysia. And that is before. And during the flood, they also, everyone need to be well-versed on what to do inside the house, outside the house, inside the vehicle, and during the relocation, evacuation process, and also the management of the electrical for the safety and so on. This one during the flood, which also you can find on our website, and also after the flood on the early stage, inspection of the surrounding before you go in, and also the precaution when you enter the abandoned houses. If you go to certain area still in Pahang, or even in certain area in Selangor, also people are yet to enter their house because it's totally demolished. In fact, there's one village, 15 houses have been wiped out due to the flood, recent flood, and so on. And the last one is about restoration and redevelopment. And this is the biggest headache for everyone, that how to restore or redevelop the totally damaged or total loss of the houses and so on, and facilities, road. In fact, recently government announced almost 1 billion allocation to JKR to build the road and also other things. So redevelopment is not cheap affair, So we need to understand, and also everyone need to empower with the tools and material needed to produce, to develop a community resilient, flood resilient community. Beside the material information, be the flood ranger, the material tools that we need to have continuous potable water, clean consumable water, which is the hardest thing during the flood, and also the grab bag, and also the 72H kit. And another one I like to share, this is what happened when I went to Kelantan a few years ago to conduct this training. In fact, due to the monsoon flood over the years, people in Kelantan already familiarized the importance of the boat. So most of the houses, they even have flood standby. Okay, so now it's a thought even for urban community and also the local authority to get boat stock ready in all area. Okay, so that because this is critical to reach the target for the flood in a community. And I've been told that is the biggest problem to reach the community. In fact, there's certain community who live without any food for the 24 hours or even 48 hours in certain area, even in Selangor and so on. So both should be should be treated as essential tools and so on. Okay, so I'm coming to the end. The bottom line is environment belongs to all of us. That, as I mentioned, not only human flora and fauna, water needs space. Please, everyone, we need to invest, protect, restore the space for water. Otherwise, you'll enter our house because water need to find their own space and so on. Water is connected with anything and everything. And any mismanagement that what's happening currently will affect every living things. Okay, and it's a time for us to put civic back into the civil engineering, not only the hard approach structure solution, but also the soft approach and so on. And we strongly believe that everyone need to learn to coexist with the nature, and river basin management should be guided by both, okay, human ethics as well as the river ethics. So we need to respect river as a living entity and need to balance the hard, soft, and hard approach, because we strongly believe the root cause, okay, the real culprit is a human factor. Therefore, the solution also must be human, not only the government, but also private sectors and public. The most important attitude, all of us, we need to change the attitude. We need to take responsibility. We need to be responsible community. Just do it, walk the talk, no talk, action only. Please start to act, because climate change is real. Flood is not one of kind thing. It will be annual affair or frequent affair, and it will happen not only once, written period of 100 years. We are talking about even reduced by half, it will be 50 years. So 50 years prediction will be 25 years or even more frequent and more severe. Okay, so with that, all of us, we need to be responsible. We need to learn to live and provide space for water, for healthier environment, better economic, and more cohesive society. Together we achieve more. Everyone need to be responsible and play our part. With that, thank you. Okay, I hand over to you, Siew.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kali. So now we will proceed to the Q&A session. So we have a few questions for our speakers here. Now I believe Dr. Renard is pressed for time, so I will ask the first question to Dr. Renard. Dr. Renard, so question one, what can multinationals do to educate on climate change with relation to the current flood crisis?
Yeah, so when they talk about multinationals, they're referring to corporations, is it specifically?
Yeah, corporations.
Oh, yeah. I think there's a lot. I think we've already seen a lot of multinational corporations, especially in the recent flood events, really step up to assist with flood victims. So, they've been engaged in supporting social enterprises, NGOs, in the delivery of food, and just basic necessities. So I think on the flood relief end, they're already doing as much as they can. But of course, in order to really step up engagement, they can also work more closely, I guess, with enterprises who are well versed with climate risks and opportunities, and ensure that they also conduct, an assessment of their own area of impact to see if operations where they have, factories, manufacturing plants in, will they continue to be there, with the flood events, and what can they do to prevent it? So I think that there's lots to do in that sense.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Renard. And the next question for you is, what happens if we really do nothing to stop the climate change?
Yeah, so I think in my presentation, I made it very clear that, the science already speaks for itself. There's very limited time for us to, take action. It's very clear. If you want to cap temperatures from increasing by 1.5 degrees Celsius, we have to do it, right? And then we only have less than, about a dozen years left to actually act on this. If we don't, there will be further extreme catastrophic events. Floods is one of them, droughts, forest fires that has been happening globally. I think we will be seeing more extreme weather events, right, happening. But at the end of the day, I think we have to bear in mind that this is not just, some high level mega event that happens. It's also very personal. It's people's livelihoods. It's about lives here that we're talking about. Personally, I've lost friends, right? In this recent flood event. I can only imagine the amount of devastation that their families have to go through. Because of such catastrophes, and no one should ever have to go through that, especially if it's preventable. I think that's a misnomer. A lot of people say that that climate change, this floods are natural disasters, but for me, I've always seen them as man-made disasters, because I always feel that, whatever that we do to the environment, the pumping in of carbon emissions into the atmosphere, it's all really, exacerbating the situation.
Okay. Thank you for sharing, Dr. Renard. Thank you for your time. So next question, I would like to direct to Dr. Kali. How does flooding affect the water quality of a river?
Thank you for the questions. Obviously, when flood happen, you will carry all the pollution, especially including, if you have the non-maintained septic tank, sewage treatment plant, and so on, non-function, all these things. You will carry the not only the waste, chemical waste, also bacteria, and so on. Definitely, the flood water are not safe for consumption, and that's why I said, as a preparation, everyone need to invest in the tools that to qualify what they call potable water supply during the disaster or the flood time, and we cannot rely on the flood water for the potable water supply, because it will be polluted. It will be highly polluted. It's strongly not recommend at all to use the flood water or river water during the flood time, and so on. It will be contaminated with all different type of pollution, from the chemical, microbial, and also other type of pollution. It's not only on the sediment, which is, for me, it's not so serious like a chemical and microbial pollution, and so on.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Kali. Next question I will direct to YB Charles. So YB Charles, what kind of advice would you give to flood victims and families? And And maybe to add to this question, how people who would like to help the flood victims can help. Yeah.
Before I answer that question, let me just go back and pick up an issue that Dr. Kali had raised about the impact of floods on the rivers. I think the rivers are a victim of development as the way we practice it in the country. It receives all kinds of rubbish and all kinds of waste into the river. Rivers today, have chemicals coming into it. Factory waste management flows into rivers. You have plastic pollution in the rivers, and you have and then you have sewage pollution in rivers. All kinds of pollution happens in the river. But at the same time, the river is also where you have fish, you have crabs, where you have prawns, where you have sea life, which we eat. So can you imagine that it is this waste that is being eaten up by the fish that we are consuming? So if you look at that as a circular movement, we are actually eating the waste that our companies are producing. We are eating the plastic pollution or the plastic poison that we are throwing into the river. We are contaminating it. We are eating contaminated or drinking contaminated water as well as fish and so on. And don't forget that water is also that water that the rivers are also used for farming, are used for chicken rearing, pig rearing as well. So you can see how the impact, the role of the river, but we undermine it. We undermine it at every point. And companies use that as a way to discharge their waste management. This is where, again, as I said, there must be a political will on the part of government to enforce rules and regulations to ensure there is no waste management that is straight sent to, and waste management should be recycled. Should be recycled and not directed towards rivers. And the impact of it, we don't have to mention in Selangor because 2 years before that, every other day we were closing our treatment plants because of pollution. So therefore, we have to learn the lesson. But it looks like the people, the government, and the companies have not learned the lesson, and therefore we keep repeating it because we are so happy following the same SOPs, following the same work ethics, following the same work procedures, rules, and regulations. And that is why we really have to wake up. I don't know what else we need to have after what we saw in the last 2-3 weeks for a wake-up call. I think it can't get any worse than this. And mind you, we only had the tail of Typhoon Rai. If this was the eye of the storm, it would have been total devastation. And that is what we need to be prepared for. That is what we need to be prepared for and to be ready for going forward. It can happen anytime. It can happen next month, the month after that, or during the monsoon seasons. But the point is we have to be ready. And ready here means change in policy, change in the way we think, change in our enforcement approaches, and so on and so forth. But coming back to the question that you had, what is the advice given to flood victims and also how to help flood victims and so on? I think there's a lot of it happening at this time. And I think this is where it has to be targeted. It has to be targeted to poorer families. I mean, let me also share with you that the rich in Bandar Botanic also had houses got flooded, their cars got flooded. The poor in other parts of Klang also got the floods, also got lost everything in their homes. Though I would think that the rich can easily recover better than the poorer communities, and therefore I think more attention, state-directed attention, and NGO-directed attention should go into the poorer sections of society who have actually faced the COVID crisis, out of job, reduced wages, or unstable livelihoods and so on. Now they have to face a second problem. So therefore, we have to reach out to these families in order to target our help. But remember, NGOs, our welfare, NGOs and individuals are only a short-term measure. they don't have the resources like what the government has. So the government really has to think some kind of a support system or enhance social protection, like what they have in other countries, where when your house is flooded, you get support. If your furniture is broken because or gets it can't be used because of the floods, it's also supported. So I think we need to relook at social protection from a government standpoint in order to support families like this. I would like to venture and suggest here that floods should be seen as part of national life. It is no longer one-off. It is no longer one-off, as what Dr. Kali had mentioned, that it will happen, once in 5 years, once in 10 years, once in 15 years. Looks like the situation in Terengganu, Kelantan, and Pahang, which happens every year, is now faced by the rest of the country. You had the same problem in Selangor, you had floodings in Johor and Melaka, and so on and so forth. So you're beginning to see that as a norm, which means that it happens all the time. And if it happens all the time, something has fundamentally shifted. And because the climate factors have changed and our drainage and irrigation and our policies have not kept in tandem with the climate change, we are seeing the devastation. So it is quite clear the government has to back up, both state as well as the federal government. It's just not the federal government alone, but also state governments need to rethink and reorient development. Development is good. It brings about growth, but it cannot be destructive. You build a house and then after 5 years, the flood wipes it out away. So what's the point of building the house? So, but now you have to have added factors, which means that companies, multinational corporations need to rethink production, need to rethink supply chain, need to rethink about adaptation, and so on and so forth. And I think government enforcement and policies to have to keep in tandem with the changing environment that we have.
Thank you, YB Charles. Next question, I will direct it to Dr. Kali. So an audience member asked, what happens to a river after a flood? Maybe you can elaborate more on what happens.
I'm not so sure in what aspect the question focusing, but obviously when flood happened, the river, normally if the river is in a natural condition, as you know, characteristic of a natural river, she as a living entity, she can cope up with that and she can adjust, okay, how to handle the river. So we need to see what happened to the river based on the characteristic, whether it's a totally natural river or the concrete channelized river, like what happened in the cities, most of the cities and so on. So it's various of the structural of the river, whether it's a natural condition or not. But normally, river, especially if it's in the natural condition, it will take time to recover, okay? And normally she can adjust the thing, provided we didn't put too much pressure on our water resources. That's why when we say that development or we call a riverfront project, all this thing, we need to look into the carrying capacity of the river, whether whatever we plan to do, whether it's within the carrying capacity of the river, the water flow or not, so that if anything goes wrong, the river can cope with that and so on. So I think these are the only thing, because I cannot really understand in what aspect the question directed to me, but for me, the most important that if the river is a natural condition, she can look after herself, provided that we don't put too much pressure on the water catchment and also riverfront and so on, so that any pressure she can absorb and dilute the project. And when flood happen, normally will take time, the retention time, recovery period, various according to the nature of the river, which section of the river, is it upstream, midstream, downstream, and the density of the development, what kind of development in that area. So is various of so many factors and so on. Okay, I hope that I answered the questions. Thank you.
Yeah,
I think a lot of people are asking the question, why did Sri Muda, why was the situation in Sri Muda bad? How come the water was not able to clear in a short period of time, like in other places? What really happened then?
I think YB, I think Sri Muda is a very classical example where when we develop the water prone area, so it's actually a flood prone area now. It's designated. In fact, I don't know how the housing area been allowed in that area. Okay, so as I mentioned in my slide, the common understanding that everyone needs to understand water needs space, and that area is meant to flooded, and that's a space for the river water and so on. That's number one. Number two, in this particular scenario, beside the carrying capacity of the river, which is tremendously be reduced due to the sedimentation and so on of the Klang River, and also the backflow of the sea from the sea, wave from the sea and so on, backflow from the Melaka Strait and also other thing, and also issue on the pump. Okay, as you know, there's a water gate and so on. So there's a various factor, but for me, the fundamental is that area should not be developed for the residential. That is so we cannot give any other reason rather than mismanagement or misapproval of the area for the development.
Thanks, Dr. Kali. I was going to say some of the things that you had raised, but my point was basically, did JPS approve the project?
I think recently.
Hold on. I think that's the question that needs to be asked. Was the project approved by JPS? Because then the government is complicit with the problem. That's the point I would like to raise. Because it is a known, it's a jungle. It's a water retention jungle. And everybody knows that you don't build and don't destroy or cut down trees in a water retention jungle. But it happened. And we know 20 years ago that after building that area, it was constantly flooding for a period of time. Only later, when they built a special, some kind of a pathway, flood mitigation and so on, it kind of quieted down. But still, because water has got its own way of operating, it's got its own sense of equilibrium, as what Dr. Kali had said. It's a living mechanism, it's a living thing. So therefore, the question that needs to be raised is, although we are behind the 20 years or 25 years since the entire place was developed, did JPS give permission to, did it approve the project? I know it's the wrong question to ask now, but the point is, this is a learning moment. And therefore, we have to ask that question, because lots of areas that are being flooded today is because those areas are flooding areas, those are flooding prone areas, they're water retention areas, which somehow has bypassed regulations and bypassed rules in order for houses to be built. And today we pay the price. And therefore, to go forward, do you want to make the same mistake? So this is where the state government, the federal government must come out with a policy saying that we will not support this anymore, that we will not build houses in water catchment areas. We will not build property development in water catchment areas. We will not destroy mangrove in various parts of the state and the various parts of the country, because these are mitigating factors of flood and tsunami. So I think there's a lot of issues that we need to keep in mind. That's what I wanted to say. But Dr. Kali, go ahead. Your point is valid.
I'm not very sure whether I'm the right guy to answer that. Based on my experience and also communication, recently there was an issue brought up in some prime newspaper about how JPF objected when they want to de-gazette the water retention in KL, the 5 ponds brought up by one of the MPs or the thing. So he clearly mentioned that JPS objected. In fact, they put forward first application to gazette the area for the flood mitigation and flood storage and so on. So I strongly believe, of course, I cannot speak on behalf of agency, but I strongly believe most of the time, a lot of agencies have played their role, but whether their advice okay, been taken seriously by the respective agency, is the question mark. Beside whether the agency have responded, I also like to add to that question, whether advice or recommendation given by the agencies also been taken as a serious by the respective approval agencies, whether the state government or the local authority is another aspect that we should put forward as a lesson learned. Whether recommendation from the technical recommendation by technical agencies be taken, because I know there is sometimes in the recommendation they say under the government term they always use commit here, we have no objection. You see, that's a term they use now. Sometimes we need to look into the legal term when some technical agency responded to the consultation or request by the respective development agencies and so on.
I think there's a group of, the media is reporting, the online media is reporting that there is a group of residents of Sri Muda who are planning to take up a legal suit against various people. I think one of the questions they should focus on is on the permit given. Did JPS as the agency of the government to look at drainage and irrigation, did they approve the project? And if they did, okay, then they are responsible. But if they did not, then who overrode it? Whose authority was used to override the agency's permission or no approval given? I think this is something that has to be investigated, because if you look at it, most of our planning failure is because of that. Because the agency will say, no, don't do it, but somebody will override it.
Yeah.
And there are also lots of places where now they want to remove mangrove. And I think after what happened on 17th and 18th of December, you still want to go and remove mangrove, you don't deserve to be in government.
Thank you, YB Charles. And thank you, Dr. Kali. So one more question before we end our talk. And also, I would like to just FYI, Dr. Renard has another appointment to make, so he has just left the webinar. So thank you, Dr. Renard, for his time. And so one last question. This I would like to direct it to YB Charles. Can long-term changes be created through amendments of this Street and Drainage Act?
Well, I think basically this is the moment. All laws surrounding environment, including Drain and Irrigation Act, be reviewed. I will go one step forward to say and ask the government, whether it is Selangor government or any other state government, including the federal government, to set up a special committee, a high-level special committee, to investigate and recommend changes going forward. This is a matter of priority and urgency. In fact, I think in Klang itself, I'm thinking about two things. One is to start cleaning up all the drains. And this is something that I have to work together with JKR, JPS, as well as the local authorities, Majlis Renard and Klang. So that is the easy part, to clean up the drains. Of course, part of the problem with the drains is you have so much of water bottles. It's just too many water bottles there, and businessmen use that to dump their food, dump their carpentry, stuff that they break in somebody's house, they dump it in the drain, and people also throw stuff into the drain. So everybody has to make an effort to allow the drain to do its job, to let the water flow and not to contain. And also the government authorities has to rethink. For example, in the case of JKR in Klang, they have a concession agreement which only says that the drain that JKR manages will only be cleaned once in 6 months. This is ridiculous, though, absolutely ridiculous. I had raised this in Parliament a number of times. I said, you cannot do that. You must clean it every week. At least once a week, you have to clean the drains or sweep the drains, because the sediment sometimes is quarter or half of the drain itself. So even if there's a flood, if there are no sediments, at least then the houses will, the flood will be less. by the amount of water that is flowing in the drains. This has to be done. MPK has its own drains, and I think in all the PBTs that we have in Selangor and elsewhere, they should immediately start doing it. They don't have to get a phone call from their bosses saying, "You guys have to meet and do it." They should do it as a matter of fact. That means the next 1 week, they should have done it by now. That means the local authority, JPS and JKR, should have had a meeting and said, "Let's clean up all the drains in the respective areas." And I will push for that in Klang to be done. That's the first part. The second part, and the more difficult part, is to start rethinking on the way forward on drainage and irrigation. This is challenging, though. And this one major challenge would be how would you design such a plan in the context of climate change, which is quite unknown, because you don't know how bad it is going to be 3 years from now, 2 years from now, or even 10 years from now. But Klang is an area where you have major ports. It's a big income earner. Without the ports, your country will fall apart. So you really have to put resources in Klang to protect the ports, to protect the people in Klang, including the forwarding companies, including the people who live, including the tamans and the residents, and so on and so forth. So you really have to rethink, how are you going to do it? And quickly start putting the groundwork now itself. And that's why there's a high-level team has to be put together, made up of Malaysians, made up of international agencies, like the international environment agencies, and also learn from other countries what they have done, especially in the coastal areas, because coastal areas are the first, recipient or the victims of typhoons. In this case, Klang, Sepang, and all these coastal areas that gets water and so on and so forth. So therefore, I think really we need to start looking at that. But the first step is to clean up the drains. That is the first thing that we have to do. The people have to stop throwing rubbish into the drains. People have to stop. Businesses have to stop throwing things into the drain, and we have to make the drains clean. That means no rubbish, nothing whatsoever, except for water to flow. This is something that we have no choice, but it's a matter of priority. It's something that we're pushing for. But I think it's something that it should be a matter of fact. They should already be moving on that already. This is what a proactive government would do.
Thank you very much, YD Charles. So we have come to the end of this webinar. Thank you, each and every speaker, YD Charles and Dr. Kali. So to sum up this webinar, I think you heard it very clear from every speaker. Climate change is really no joke. As Dr. Kali said just now, we will need to work with nature. With a tropical country like Malaysia, there is so much rainfall. We will definitely need to act fast on flood management policies and flood management programs, basically, as soon as possible. So I would like to thank again to our media partner, Kini TV. And to those who have been watching, thank you very much. And if you would like to see more talks like this, don't forget to donate to us with the QR code. You can scan it with any e-wallet app you have. And so thank you, everyone. Happy Thaipusam and have a good night.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Stay safe. Take care.
Take care, guys.
Thank you very much.
Okay, bye.
Kita jaga kita, jangan lupa.
Yeah. Okay.